Okay, so thank you all for joining, and thank you to everybody who's maybe watching later on the recording for participating in this program. Again, just to explain a little bit of the idea behind it, there are lots of learning programs that are going on at the moment, and we wanted to increase Limud Torah for the safety and success of our Chayalei and for all of Am Yisrael. We thought if we divide up a Masechet and everybody gets the opportunity to learn their daf, then we will increase, everybody will be learning more than they would. We'll increase limud Torah in the world, we'll make siyum, and that will all be a good thing. The problem with these kind of programs is that everybody's learning their own thing by themselves, and there's no interaction or anything like that. So we thought we'll have this short weekly meeting. Again, doesn't mean we're not all going to become Bakim in the entire Masechet from a 15-minute meeting now, but the benefit is everybody who's willing and who's able to just share a few lines or a brief insight or something they thought about on the daf that they've learned, and it's a way of also coming together. It's a way of making it a communal project, and it's a way of sharing from each other's knowledge and wisdom. Again, I apologize for those for whom the time zone does not allow them to join this week. Again, we'll have to revisit and see what we can do about the timing for next week. Okay, so let me begin. Aaron Amit wasn't able to make it this morning, but he actually has learned two dafim. He learned daf bet and he learned daf yud. So he asked me to read out an idea on his behalf. So I'll do daf bet and then we'll go around to everybody else and back and do daf yud. Okay, so what he shared was the following. If you look at daf bet, so the main topic of the first daf is the tradition of Rabbi Yochanan, who says there are three keys, there are three maftechot, which are in the hands of God, that are not given over to a shaliach. You can see in the Gemara, again, we're in Masechet Ta'anit. So each of these is learned from a pasuk. The three keys are the key to rain, the key to childbirth, and the key to resurrection of the dead. Gemara says in the West, which is Eretz Yisrael, they add a fourth, which is the key to Parnassah. The Gemara then asks why Rabbi Yochanan didn't include Parnassah as one of the keys, and answers that according to Rabbi Yochanan, rain and Parnassah are one and the same. I'll just add in, that's why that's why the word for rain in Hebrew is Geshem. Geshem, we know, also relates to Gashmi, or to anything physical, related to the idea of Parnassah also. So Aaron says he was thinking maybe another answer, that all three keys that are mentioned by Rabbi Yochanan all appear in the second bracha of the Amidah, in the bracha of Gvurot. We have rain, which is Meshiva Ruach Umrda Geshem. We have resurrection of the dead, which is Mechayim Meitim, and childbirth, which is represented in the phrase of Melech Meimit Umachayeh, which refers to resurrection as well, but also implies God gives life, and that could be talking about childbirth as well. And therefore, he says all these three are controlled by Hashem alone and are not given over to a shaliach. Okay, so that's an idea on daf bet. Does anybody wants to share something about the daf which they've been learning? Howie, you're on mute.
Okay. So I learned daf chet, and daf chet, as in many places, quotes Rav Ami with something that has to do with the topic of the Gemara, then quotes other things that Rav Ami says that has nothing to do with what the Gemara is saying. But Rav Ami says that when you daven, you have to daven bekavana and understand what you're saying. Then the Gemara quotes something else, another mamar from Shmuel that says, no, that's not necessary. And the Gemara then says, well, someone says yes, someone says no, what's going on? It says, if someone davens biyechidus, then he has to understand what he's saying, because otherwise it's not accepted. But when you daven with a minyan, then that davening is always accepted. Which brought to mind a video that I saw this morning of somebody who is in Gaza now, a soldier, who said that this is one thing that we need. This is what he said. This is all we need from you, is to daven. And that's all. We need your tefillot. This is what this guy said. And we don't need other things. We have everything that we need, but we need your tefillot. And he said, if you can go to shul, good, you daven with the minyan. If you can't go to shul, than daven at home by yourself. But we need your tefillot. So it was very apropos.
Wow. Okay, thank you. Inspiring. Paul, I see
I'll go next. Yeah, so I learned Daf Tet and part of Daf Yud, and this is a lot of discussion and machlokas between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua of where does rain come from, and there were kind of two basic views. Rabbi Yeshua basically says HaKadosh Baruch Hu at creation created two types of water, one for water in the ground and one for water up in the heaven, in the Rikia. So his view is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is sending water down from the piles of water that occurred at Priyas Olam, where he brought it down from the heaven. Rabbi Eliezer says no, it's the opposite. It's really coming from the ocean, and it's very interesting because Rabbi Eliezer really defines the whole process of rain, and there are kind of 4 steps in the process of rain. Which actually was defined in roughly about the 16th century. You have the evaporation from the sun, which takes out the salt. And that was one of Yeshua's questions. How can it come from the ocean? It's not salt water. It's not raining salt. No, it rains regular water. Well, the evaporation takes place and removes the salt from the vapor that goes up into Shemayim. Then there's condensation, where the vapor turns into clouds and it turns back into water. Then there's a precipitation that kind of goes down, and then there's the recollection again back in the oceans and the seas, and this process goes on and on and on. So I found it very interesting that the actual scientific process of rain wasn't clearly defined until the 16th century, and here we have in the second century, the time of the Tanaim, where you actually have a definition how the scientific process of rain occurs, which always blows me away when we're learning Gemara. So many things that we're learning, kind of are verified by science many centuries later. It just shows you the power and the insight of Chachamim, of Tanaim and Amarim when they were putting together and learning the Gemara. And we should also have this type of insight as we're learning. Things that we're going to learn in the Gemara, maybe it'll be proved scientifically sometime future, through science.
Yeah, fascinating. Thank you. I'll just add to that. I mean, we talk about this often. There's there's a machloket that goes through amongst the Rishonim, amongst the Achronim. It's a cause for a lot of controversy in our days as well. To what extent things which are not things that came by Masorah necessarily, but the scientific facts, medical facts that I mentioned in the Gemara. Are those things? Do we assume that Chazal were correct always? Do we assume that they made mistakes? Do we assume that they had Ruach HaKodesh when speaking about that or not? I'm not going to get into it now. It's a topic for Shiurim on its own right, and whatever I say, somebody will probably put me in cherem, so I'm going to stay out of it for now. But just what you're saying is that sometimes there is a voice out there that can be very dismissive of some of the things that Chazal said. And again, not to say that always they get at it exactly the way that modern science does, but oftentimes, Chazal understood a lot more than we tend to give them credit for. So Yesher Koach. Thanks.
Well, we always learn that nothing new is created in the world, right? We just got to understand how the original creation occurred and apply it to what we see around us.
Yeah. Ronnie, did you want to share something?
Okay, I'm just going to add just a short comment. I don't have my Gemara in front of me. I'm learning together with Eli Friedwald, who is, I believe, in a different shiur right now. But we learned one of the earlier dapim of the Masechta, and what really struck me was that where the Gemara discussed when a person makes a bracha, or when a person makes a bakasha, the wording that the individual uses has to be chosen very, very carefully, even if there are all good intentions in the individual, that there are sometimes unknowns which of course we may not be able to appreciate ourselves, but that we have to be very, very careful. I mean, I think, as I say, I don't have the Gemara in front of me, but I think one of the examples was when Shaul HaMelech, when they were dealing with Goliath, and he made a statement that whoever is victorious over Goliath is going to be able to marry, if I'm not mistaken, one of his children. Did I get that correct, Rabbi Kenigsberg? Something I think along those lines. And there are certain assumptions, I guess, that Shaul was making, which were certainly healthy assumptions, but at the same time, I think what jumped out at me in our learning was that one has to be just very, very careful, because we don't know oftentimes what lurks behind, the statement and what the possibilities are. So that, as I say, that was what struck me.
Yafeh. Shakoch. So I'll just add two more comments. Another one from Aaron and just one from myself. So Aaron said that he learned Daf Yud as well. And then on Daf Yud, there's the Baraita of Hanania who says that outside of Eretz Yisrael, in Bavel, they begin to ask for rain on the 60th day of the Tkufa. And this is one of the anomalies. This is something which nowadays, when people travel back and forth, it can get very confusing as well. Because in Eretz Yisrael, we begin on Zayin Cheshvan asking for rain, but in Chutz La'aretz, it's on the 60th day of the Tkufa, which is the 60th day after the autumn equinox, and works out to be more or less December the 4th. So the reasons why it's December 4th are quite complicated. It has to do with the switch from the Julian to the Gregorian calendars. We've done science today, we're doing history, we're doing it all. So he says, in addition, because of the fasts that are done by Yechidim when there is no rain, the question of who can take on extra obligations is discussed. Worthy of note is the position of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, that if it's an extra obligation that's difficult and causes pain, like fasting, anyone is allowed to take it on. However, if it's an extra obligation that causes praise to the person who does it, and it's not difficult, that should only be done by people who always take on extra responsibility and are worthy of that praise. I guess that's also something for us to think about in terms of the things that we take on and why we take them on and what our motivations are. I'll just mention, I was learning Daf Yud Bet, and I'll just share with you a line here, which is very, very apt. This is really on Daf Yud Aleph, really apt for the time that we are in right now. The Gemara here really starts off talking about times of famine, but it talks about really times of distress. And we have a Braita, which is Tan Rabbanan, Bizman Yisrael Shoyin Betzar Upiresh Echad Mehen, when there is a distress which comes upon the community and somebody separates himself from it. So the two angels who are familiar to us from Friday night, from Shalom Aleichem, right? But there are two angels which accompany a person. It says these two angels come, obviously this is all metaphorical, but they place their hands on his head, so to speak, and they say, this individual who separated himself from the community, from their distress, he won't take part in their comfort either. Tanya Idach, there's another Braita, says when the community is in suffering. And again, you can understand the Gemara here is talking about Tzibur, Kal v'chomer ben beno shel Kal v'chomer, when we're talking about the entire Am Yisrael. It says, so when the Tzibur sharoi betzar, al yomar adam elech leveiti v'ochel v'ishteh. Person should not say, I'm going to go to my house and I'm going to eat and I'm going to drink. V'shalom alei nafshi. And it will all be good for me. Okay, out there they're fighting, out there they're suffering, out there they're whatever. I'm just going to go and live my life business as usual. The Gemara has very, very harsh words to say somebody like that. I saw an interesting Chayalei, which somebody asked now as to whether is one allowed to go. I don't remember exactly the context of the question, but somebody wanted to know to go to a restaurant or to go to a coffee shop. I think it was somebody coming from Chutz La'aretz, and could they come to Israel? Was it appropriate? There's a war going on and all things. So there are two ways to look at this. One way is to say, on the one hand, if it's just going and having parties and having a frivolous sort of celebration, that is not appropriate. Now is not the time. On the other hand, if a person has a need for it, a person needs, it's not just celebrating. It's not the shalom aleich nafshi, but it's a way of, I guess, releasing some of the tension, a way of being able to relax a little bit, a way of coping. Certainly, part of the war is that our enemies want to destroy, want to stop us from living normal lives. They want to destroy our routine. Businesses are suffering as well. So because of those reasons, it would seem that it would be appropriate, if one feels the need and go out and have a cup of coffee or go and sit in a restaurant. Again, not to go over the top, but that would be okay, and that would not be considered a poresh min hatzibur, I don't think. I just mentioned we mentioned this in Shul the other day as well. But the Rambam in Hilchot Shuvah, based on this Gemara, more or less, he writes that a poresh min hatzibur afal pi shel ava averot el nifdal me'adat Yisrael, right? Person who, even though they do mitzvot, they don't transgress averot, but they don't see themselves as part of the community, right? Lo nichnas b'tzaratan, lo mitaneh b'tanitan, does not take part in their sorrow, does not fast in their fasts, el olech b'darko, just goes in his way. Well, says the Rambam, such a person eino chelek le'olam haba. As we've discussed many times already, the idea of nosei ba'ol chavero, the idea of achdut, particularly at this time, is something very, very powerful, something that can B'ezrat Hashem stand us in good stead as well. Okay, so ad kan yashar koach to everybody. I think this was nice. In addition to the individual learning, we were able to learn from each other. And as I say, we will revisit in terms of the timing of this, maybe to allow more people to come. Aaron said he will send out, either he'll send out or I'll send out the next allocation of dapim sometime today or tomorrow, so that we'll be able to carry on. I think by next week we'll probably reach the end of the Masechet. Yashar koach.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rabbi.